If you ask anyone if it's difficult to land a job that you're not qualified for, they will definitely tell you it's not possible, including myself. I would tell you that it's not easy. It is not easy at all, but it can be done because clearly I did it, especially after I was unemployed for a whole 3 years. And this is how I did that. So I got hired through an agency, and I will walk you through the whole process of how everything worked out. And because I was hired through an agency, I had to go through 2 interviews, and the hiring process of 48 hours happened with the actual employer, not the agency. So I am going to walk you through the process of my hiring and also how I ultimately landed this job in just a short time frame. First thing to know, this was my very first job, as I had been unemployed for a while now. So what I did during that period, it started with me preparing myself before I even started applying, and the preparation happened during the unemployment period. So I did a lot of different courses online, and previous to that also I had been working as an influencer. And I'm telling you this because it will come together right at the end when I'm going to tell you how the 48-hour hiring happened. So I already had a social media presence. I decided to go online and acquire more skill in terms of social media and business and everything, generally everything online. I am your online babe. I enjoy everything that is done online, okay? So that is what I had, and I acquired these skills from different platforms online, and most of them, believe you me, most of the qualifications I got online were actually free, just a few of them that I paid for. And I did these on websites like Udemy, on Coursera, on Allison, different types of websites. As I was going into my application process with this agency, I am going to walk you through the things that I believe were really critical and were helpful in this whole process. So we'll start with, whenever you're applying for a remote job, the process is kind of similar. It's not the same, but it's kind of similar in terms of you are obviously going to be asked to do like an environment check. That is when they check what equipment do you have. If it's a company that provides equipment, then they will know what to provide. If it's a company that doesn't provide equipment, they want to know what you have and if it's sufficient for you to get your job done. You're also going to go through an English test where they just want to see how good are you with your grammar, your punctuation, your spelling, and all of that stuff. And I would say the big thing here, you definitely need to make sure you pass. Obviously, you need to pass your English test, you need to pass your environment test, and you also need to make sure you are responsive. For me, this looked like being asked to do a task today and delivering within a few hours, and also just making sure I'm not going over 24 hours in me responding. So being responsive also speeds up your own application process. If you're someone who's going to take 2 or 3 days to respond, babe, so many other people are looking for jobs, and we all know the job market right now is wild. So you really want to be responsive. And I realized, as responsive as I was, they were also quite responsive, and they were also very quick to tell you, oh, now you've passed this, let's do this, let's do that. So you really want to make sure you are responsive during your application process. Once you're done with the application and they're okay and happy with everything they've made you do, you are obviously going to go into the interviewing phase. And with most companies, you're either going to be on Zoom or you're going to be on Teams, or these days I've come across some companies where they don't really have like a face-to-face interview with you. They will just send you questions and they want you to record yourself answering the questions. And again, you want to make sure, if that's the case, you are pretty responsive, you're delivering your work on time. That's another thing that ties into all of this. As a remote worker, you're supposed to be someone who's able to time manage on your own. You're supposed to be someone who is also responsive to either your clients or to your team. So you really need to show that in your application process. In everything you're doing, you're basically giving them a hint of how you would handle your work. So with your application, you've done that. With your interview, you also want to be pretty prepared for your interview. I have shared a video before on this, so please go and watch that video. I will put it up here somewhere. Please go and watch that video so that you know how to prepare for your interviews to make sure you will pass. Once you're done with an interview, well, for this company specifically, this hiring agency specifically, they take you into training. It's not every company that will do this, but in your training, if you happen to have something like that, something I have personally picked up from the two companies that I've worked for now, I've worked for these two companies remotely and they are both American. Something I have personally picked up is that whether it's in your training or in your working environment, I have not come across any place where I'm kind of set up to fail. If anything, you will forever be set up to always be able to do your job. What does this look like? In my current job, it looks like having all the processes in order, all the templates I need to get my job done, they are there. All they need from me is to give feedback on what I could do better or what I need to make my job a little easier. And this is the same as the training process. In the training process, it was a training for 1 week. And essentially what you would need to do is to make sure you pay attention. You are going to be working remote, so your training is going to be remote as well. You really need to pay attention. You really need to take notes. And like I said, you are set up to pass. So everything you learn during that week is exactly what you're going to be asked at the end of the week in your test. They are not trying to trick you or ask you tricky questions. No, nobody's trying to trick you into failing. They want you to pass. So my tip would be, I was taking notes all throughout that week, and I made sure after my training daily I would go through those notes so I understand exactly what I was learning. By the time we got to the end of the week where we were now being tested on what we learned, you are able to remember and even reference your notes before your test, and that really helps. So here is where the whole 48 hours then happened. After I was done with this company, and keep in mind, remember I told you this was for a LinkedIn community manager. I had never worked as a social media manager. If anything, I had only managed an Instagram account for a fashion brand, and I only did that for about 3 months, but I wouldn't say I was pretty qualified on LinkedIn. I only had a LinkedIn account which I had never been active on. I didn't even know how LinkedIn worked, but based on the feedback that I got, which I'll get into, you will understand how this then actually happened. After my training, we were then told it will basically take between 2 to 4 weeks in order for you to then be paired to a prospective employer. And this is when you have a second interview. Literally 48 hours after training, this lady was interested in interviewing me. We had an interview and the job was mine. The job that I was not qualified for, the job that I was not experienced in, but the thing that people are looking for is skill and determination to learn. And you also need to show that you're a go-getter. You can get things done on your own. Most remote companies are looking for people who possess that. So if you are unemployed or if you are looking for a remote job, don't be a person who is not able to get things on your own, someone who is not able to upskill without anybody asking you to. If you do that, it will become easier to land jobs, even the ones that you think you will never be qualified for. Because after getting this job, we went on to do amazing things, okay? Even though I ended up leaving the company, and now I'm at the company I'm at now.